From the Devizes and Wiltshire Advertiser, on Thursday the 30th of June, 1898. A tragic occurrence, resulting in the death of husband and wife, took place at Flistridge Cottages on the Eastcourt estate, about 5 miles from Malmesbury, in the early hours of Tuesday morning. In one of the two cottages resided Arthur Cousins, aged 56, a gamekeeper to Mr. Richard Charters of Eastcourt House. He lived with his wife Ellen Cousins, aged 49. The family are grown up, and only one daughter, named Annie, was staying at home. Her age is about 21. At 5:45, the daughter heard groaning in the bedroom adjoining hers and went to see what was the matter. She was told by her mother to get up and get some tea, as her father was very ill. She got up, and when she went back again, found both ill. She ran to call Mrs. Cooper, a neighbour, and when she returned, she found her parents dead. Her father had previously made a communication to her suggesting foul play. The police and the coroner were communicated with, and on Wednesday afternoon an inquest was held before Deputy Coroner Parnes. Mr. William Eslip was appointed foreman of the jury.
My name is Annie Cousins. I am the daughter of the deceased. My parents had been married about 22 years, and I had been at home since last December. My parents lived very happily together until about 3 weeks ago. Since then, my mother had been very strange. She had been attended at intervals by Dr. Kinnear of Malmesbury. She suffered from weakness of the nerves and sickness, and seemed very much depressed on Saturday night. She said she would finish father and I. I told her it was wrong to say such things. There had been no quarrel between my mother and my father, and he never answered her back. Mother appeared very much better on Sunday, and with my father walked across the field. At 5:45 on Tuesday morning I heard my father groaning in his bedroom, as if in great pain. I went into the room and saw him in bed. He couldn't find my mother at about 4 o'clock, and got up and looked for her, but could not find her. She was in the yard, and came in. After father had come back upstairs, he did not then say he had taken anything. Mother was in her nightdress, and told me to get up and dress myself, and make a fire. I stood there for 10 to 15 minutes, and then went downstairs. In about 5 minutes, my father called me up. Mother was then very ill. Mother was in her second attack of convulsions when father was taken ill again. He then told me mother had done it. She had poisoned him by giving him a pill, which he took for a Whelpton's. We never spoke again. There was no one else in the house, and I asked Mrs. Cooper, the next-door neighbour, to come in, but she could not. A man named Job Lester came at 7:30. I did not find anything unusual about the room, but I now know that there was strychnine in the house, but I had previously forgotten it. It was sent to my father last February or March. I do not know where it was kept, as mother took charge of it. I do not know what father wanted it for, but I believe it was for killing vermin. I told my father, after my mother threatened us, not to take anything mother offered, as I thought she meant mischief. I prepared all the meals, as mother was disabled. I did not see or hear anything the night previous. Father was in the habit of taking pills once a week for indigestion. Mother and he generally took them at the same time. She used to mix them in a bit of jam in a spoon for my father. I noticed the marks of jam and a little white powder in a spoon next morning. Mother had undergone a serious operation at St. Bartholomew's Hospital for a month with an internal tumour, and she had been to Malmesbury Cottage Hospital. Since that time she had been in a very desponding way, saying she was going to die.
My name is Sarah Kent, and I live at Eastcourt, 1.5 miles from the deceased. I was in the habit of visiting and assisting Mrs. Cousins. I was sent for at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. I found both Mr. and Mrs. Cousins dead. I saw a little jug in the bedroom, by Mrs. Cousins' side of the bed. There was a little liquid in the bottom. Mrs. Cousins was very strange in her manner when I last saw her alive, 3 weeks ago. She had been through a great deal of suffering, and was very low.
My name is Simon Cooper, and I am the next-door neighbour. I heard moaning from the bedroom of the house adjoining. I came down and lit a fire. Miss Cousins came and said her father and mother were very ill and asked me to come and assist. I told her I would do anything to help her, but I didn't go in and was not asked. I went to Eastcourt and fetched Mrs. Kent and took telegrams to Oaksey for the doctor and Mrs. Porter. I saw both the deceased out on Saturday, and they seemed as usual. I have not noticed anything peculiar about Mrs. Cousins during the last 2 or 3 weeks.
My name is Gus Cousins. I am 20 years old and the son of the deceased. I left home in January last, and it was me who sent the strychnine, last March, from my uncle Thomas Bergen from Osguthorpe in Loughborough. He is a gamekeeper. I heard my uncle talk about strychnine and knew my father had none, so I wrote to him asking if he would like some. He wrote back to say he would, if my uncle had any to spare. My uncle packed up the little bottle in a box, and he addressed it to my father. I don't know if it was labelled to show that it was poison or not, or where it was procured from. Strychnine is used by gamekeepers to destroy vermin, although I have heard that Mr. Charters would not allow poison to be used on his estate.
My name is Dr. Kinnear. On Tuesday the 21st of June I received a telegram and came and saw the bodies of the deceased persons. They were both in bed. From the appearance of the bodies, in which there was undue stiffness and rigidity, there were no marks of violence and nothing in appearance to cause death. I had known and attended to Ellen Cousins at intervals for about 2 years. She suffered from an internal complaint and was operated on at St. Bartholomew's. The operation was not dangerous and it cured the complaint, but she would never have it that she was cured. She was a woman who was very much depressed and suffered from melancholia. I do not think she was of unsound mind, but her mental balance would be easily upset. I saw her last about 3 weeks ago, and she then said that something was going to happen. I arrived at the house on Tuesday morning at 10:30, and from what the daughter told me of the nature of the convulsions, I at once concluded they had died from poison. I was shown no spoon or jam. Sarah Kent found the jug with some liquid and powder adhering to the sides. I tasted it and found it was strychnine, which can always be told by its exceedingly bitter taste. I took the jug home and tested it and confirmed the poison. The jug was at Mrs. Cousins' side of the bed and within easy reach of her hand. Subsequently, a box containing a bottle of strychnine was found. The cork had evidently been taken out in a hurry, and some of the white powder was shaken about the box. The ounce bottle produced was labelled poison and contained enough to kill 1,000 men. The symptoms are spasms and convulsions, but the mind remains quite clear. The undue rigidity showed certain signs of strychnine poisoning. My theory is that the mixture was made up the night before in the little jug, as by the side of the bed was a bit of linen rag that had evidently been tied over the mouth of the jug.
This concluded the evidence, and the coroner called the attention of the jury to the legal aspect of the case and the main facts. The jury, after some consultation, were unanimous in their verdict that Arthur Cousins died by strychnine poison, administered by his wife Ellen Cousins, and also that the said Ellen Cousins died by poison, self-administered. Dr. Evans asked if there was any means of ascertaining how the strychnine was obtained. The coroner replied that it was a matter for the police. He thought the jury might add a rider to their verdict, stating their sense of the serious consequences of persons being able to procure strychnine in such large quantities. The jury unanimously agreed to make a rider to this effect. The coroner added that this offence was a very serious one under the Pharmacy Act, which required that the utmost caution should be taken in the sale of such poisons. He said that the name and address of every purchaser should be registered, and the purchaser known to the vendor, as well as the name and address of the vendor being attached to each bottle or box. This box had no such particulars, and he hoped that every diligence would be used by the police to discover the offender. The jury gave their fees to the Malmesbury Cottage Hospital. Mr. Charters was present during the whole of the inquiry, which occupied about 2 hours.